In the heart of Chicago, where crime doesn't sleep and justice walks a dangerous line, the intelligence unit faces one of their most personal and complicated cases yet. Tonight, a routine call spirals into a web of betrayals, secrets, and a decision that could change everything. This is Chicago P.D. Season 13, Episode 15, Act 1, a simple call that isn't simple. The episode opens on a cold Chicago morning. A distress call comes into dispatch. Shots fired in a quiet residential neighborhood. Patrol units rush to the scene. But when intelligence arrives, something feels off. Hank Voight steps out of his SUV, scanning the area with his usual intensity. He doesn't speak much, but his eyes say everything. Inside the house, a man lies dead on the living room floor. No signs of forced entry. No robbery. Just a clean, calculated execution. Jay Halstead kneels beside the body, noticing a small detail, a burn mark on the victim's wrist. Not random, Halstead mutters. This was targeted. Meanwhile, Haley Upton checks the back rooms and finds something unsettling. A hidden safe. Empty. Voight's instincts kick in immediately. This wasn't just a murder, he says. It's a message. Act 2, digging deeper. Back at the district, the team starts building the victim's profile. Name, Marcus Reed. No criminal record. Works in finance. But as Kevin Atwater digs deeper, a different story begins to unfold. Reed wasn't just a financial analyst. He was laundering money, big money, connected to a shadow network operating across Chicago. And then comes a twist. The money trail leads to someone unexpected, someone inside law enforcement. The room goes silent. Voight leans forward. Find out who's dirty, he says coldly. Act 3, the first suspect. The investigation points toward a mid-level officer, Detective Carson. He's been clean on paper for years, but his financial records don't add up. Expensive cars, hidden accounts, and ties to Marcus Reed. Upton and Halstead bring him in for questioning. At first, Carson denies everything, but when confronted with evidence, cracks begin to show. Still something doesn't sit right. Voight watches the interrogation from behind the glass. He's scared, Voight says, but not of us. Act 4, a bigger conspiracy. As the team continues digging, a bigger picture emerges. Carson wasn't the mastermind. He was just a middleman. The real operation goes higher, much higher. The money being laundered isn't just from street crime. It's tied to a powerful organization with influence in politics and law enforcement. Atwater uncovers encrypted messages linking Reed to a mysterious figure known only as a broker. No name, no face, just power and control. Act 5, personal stakes. Things take a personal turn when Upton discovers something shocking. One of the accounts connected to the operation traces back to someone she knows, someone she once trusted. Her past starts creeping into the present. Halstead notices her hesitation. You okay? He asks. Upton doesn't answer right away, because deep down she knows this case might force her to choose between loyalty and justice. Act 6, the setup. Voight decides it's time to make a move. They use Carson as bait, wire him up, send him back into the field to make contact with the broker. It's risky, dangerous, but it's their only shot. The operation unfolds at night in an abandoned warehouse district. Tension is high. Every movement feels like it could be the last. Carson waits nervously. Then, a car pulls up. Blacked out windows. Silent engine. The door opens, and out steps, not a criminal, not a gang leader, but a respected figure no one expected. Act 7, the reveal. The broker is revealed to be a high-ranking official with deep ties to the city. Someone who has been hiding in plain sight. The team is stunned. Even Voight pauses for a moment, because this changes everything. Taking him down won't just expose corruption. It could shake the entire system. Act 8, chaos erupts. The sting operation goes sideways. The broker realizes it's a setup. Gunfire erupts. Chaos explodes across the warehouse. Halstead and Atwater engage in a firefight. Upton chases the suspect through narrow corridors. Voight moves with precision, focused, relentless. Carson is caught in the middle, and in a split-second decision, He takes a bullet meant for Upton. Act 9, the final chase. The broker escapes into the night, but Voight isn't letting him get away. A high-speed pursuit tears through the streets of Chicago. Sirens scream. Engines roar. The city becomes a battlefield. Finally, Voight corners him in an underground parking garage. The two face off. No backup. No witnesses. Just justice and choices. Act 10, Voight's decision. The broker tries to make a deal. Offers names. Money. Power. Everything. Voight stares at him, silent. This is the moment. The line between right and wrong blurs. For a second, it feels like Voight might cross it. But then, he cuffs him. Justice wins. This time, Act 11, aftermath. Back at the hospital, Carson is in surgery, his fate uncertain. Upton sits quietly, processing everything. Halstead joins her. You did the right thing, he says, but she's not so sure, because sometimes doing the right thing comes with a cost. Act 13, the weight of truth. The night after the arrest feels unusually quiet. Inside the district, the usual noise, phones ringing, officers talking, keyboards clacking, feels muted, like the entire building is holding its breath. Haley Upton sits at her desk, staring at the case board. Photos, names, red strings connecting everything. But now that the case is technically closed, it doesn't feel finished. Something is still wrong. Across the room, Jay Halstead watches her carefully. You're still thinking about it, he says. Upton exhales slowly. He gave up too easily, she replies. People like him don't just fold. Halstead leans against the desk. Or maybe he knows something we don't. That thought lingers, because in their world, nothing is ever that simple. Act 14, the missing piece. Meanwhile, Kevin Atwater is going through financial records again, line by line, transaction by transaction. Something catches his eye. A payment, small but repeated, sent to multiple accounts over time, all leading to one place, a shell company that shouldn't exist anymore. Atwater frowns. Why keep feeding a debt account? He mutters. He digs deeper, and then it hits him. It's not dead. It's hidden. Someone erased it, but didn't shut it down. And that means the broker wasn't the top, Atwater says out loud. Act 15, the shadow above. Voight is called into a meeting with Internal Affairs. They're already preparing to take full credit for the arrest. Close the case. Wrap it neatly. But Voight isn't buying it. Hank Voight sits silently as they talk. Then he interrupts. You're closing the wrong door, he says. The room stiffens. One of the officials responds coldly. We have the man responsible. Voight shakes his head slightly. No, you have the face, not the head. Tension rises, because accusing the system from inside the system, that's dangerous. Very dangerous. Act 16, connecting the dots. Back at Intelligence, the team regroups. Atwater presents his findings. The hidden accounts. The continued payments. The ghost network still running. Upton adds her concern. He knew we'd stop here, she says. That's why he didn't fight harder. Halstead nods. So the question is, who's above him? Silence fills the room, because they all know what that question means. It means digging deeper into corruption. It means risking everything. Voight looks at each of them. This doesn't leave this room, he says. And if we're wrong, no one answers. Because if they're wrong, it could end their careers. If they're right, it could end much more than that. Act 17, back to the streets. The team goes off book. No official reports. No paper trail. They start with Reed's old contacts. Low-level players. Street informants. People who talk if the price is right. Atwater meets with CI in a dim alley. The man is nervous. Keeps looking over his shoulder. You're chasing ghosts, the CI whispers. Atwater steps closer. Ghosts don't move money. The CI hesitates, then finally speaks. There's someone else. Nobody knows his name. They call him the architect. Atwater's eyes narrow. Why? Because he builds everything and you never see him. Act 18, pressure builds. Back at the station, Upton and Halstead follow another lead. A lawyer. Clean reputation. Too clean. They bring him in under a pretext. During questioning, he stays calm. Too calm. "You're wasting your time," he says. Upton leans forward. "Then why are you nervous?" For a split second, his expression changes. That's all she needs. Act 19, the break. The lawyer cracks. Not completely, but enough. He confirms the existence of the architect, a man who operates above everyone. Untouchable, invisible. And then he says something chilling. You don't find him, he finds you. Act 20, the warning. That night, Upton receives a call. Unknown number. She answers cautiously. Silence at first. Then a voice. Calm. Controlled. "You're digging too deep, detective." Her grip tightens on the phone. "Who is this?" A slight chuckle. "You already know." The line goes dead. Upton stands frozen. Because now it's real. They're not just investigating anymore. They're being watched. High voltage Act 21. Lines are crossed. Voight hears about the call. His expression hardens. "This is where it gets dangerous," he says. Halstead steps in. "We can't stop now." Voight looks at him. This isn't about stopping. It's about surviving. Because Voight knows something the others are still learning. The deeper you go, the darker it gets. Act 22, the final move. They set up one last play. Using the financial trail, they create a fake transaction. Something big enough to attract attention. Something the architect can't ignore. Then they wait. Hours pass. Nothing. Then a signal. Someone accessed the account. Track location. An office building downtown. High security. Private. Untouchable. Or at least it's supposed to be. Act 23. Into the lion's den. The team moves in quietly. No sirens. No backup. Just them. Inside the building, everything feels wrong. Too quiet. Too clean. They reach the top floor. A single office. Lights on. Door slightly open. Voight gestures. They move in. Slowly. Carefully. Guns raised. They enter and find an empty room. Act 24. The truth revealed. On the desk, a single file. Voight opens it. Inside, photos of them. Every member of the unit. Watched, tracked, studied. Upton feels a chill run down her spine. He knew we were coming. Then a voice echoes from behind. "You're predictable." They turn, and there he is, the architect. Calm, smiling, untouched. Act 25, the final confrontation. Guns are raised instantly, but he doesn't flinch. "You think this ends with me?" he says. Voight steps forward. "It ends tonight." The architect shakes his head. "No, it doesn't." He gestures around. "The system, it's bigger than you." For a moment, doubt flickers in the room. But then, Voight makes his move. Act 26. Justice or consequence. The arrest is tense. Complicated. Because even now, the architect is smiling. "You win this battle," he says quietly to Voight. "But not the war." Voight doesn't respond. Because deep down, he knows it's true. Act 27. Final moments. Back at the district, the team sits in silence. Exhausted. Changed. Upton looks at the board one last time, then slowly takes it down. Halstead watches her. "It's over," he says. She nods, but her expression says otherwise, because in Chicago, it's never really over. And just like that, the intelligence unit uncovers a deeper layer of corruption, one that reminds us that in Chicago P.D., the real enemy isn't always the one holding the gun. Sometimes, it's the one pulling the strings. If you enjoyed this extended story, stay locked in with Nervu Stories, where every story goes deeper, darker, and more intense. Because the truth, it's never simple.